All right, welcome back. This is part of a multi-part series. We've got one more left and that'll come out next week. But in this week's series of our FOMO topic, we're going to talk about rent versus buy and how those numbers work. But to recap, the earlier weeks, we talked about when you start paying attention to buying a home, then you hear they're going to raise the interest rates and everybody's talking about it in the coffee shops. And we talked about that. So check out the earlier video on that. As well, I want to talk about some of the seller funded products, but that's next week. This week, we're comparing a $500,000 purchase price, renting versus buying. So as you see in this slide here, based on the current market, which is late October of 2022, we see highlighted that it's a difference of $230 a month. And that means on this slide that it is $230 a month less expensive to rent versus buy, assuming 20% down on a conventional loan. Nothing fancy on the interest rate, nothing fancy on the loan. Fixed rate, long term. Now, at the cover, you would think now's not a good time to buy because of those numbers. But let's keep in mind a couple of things. One is that we know the housing supply, we don't have enough homes for the amount of population that we have. And we have some developers that are slowing new developments now. So what we're seeing is a short-term slowing in the marketplace, but it doesn't fix the long-term problem of lack of housing numbers. What does that mean? That means we're likely to see a time of pent-up demand again, which would mean another housing boom. So maybe now is a good time to explore. Let's look at the next slide here that shows the amount of equity gained in 5 years. About $230,000 owning versus renting. How about 10 years? 10 years, that number goes up to over $390,000 in equity gain. And that's based on an assumption that the annual rent increase of 3% and annual property appreciation of 4%. So those are some pretty significant numbers. Over 10 years, $390 some odd thousand in equity in the property. So this is one of those things where you look at the here and now, as well as planning out the future. So again, I'm not telling you now you need to buy a home or not buy a home, but this is why you want to talk to a professional, is so that you can go over specifics on your specific scenario, and we can run some calculations to give you data to decide, is now a time for you, or if not, maybe when. Look forward to next week because we're going to talk about some of the seller funded programs based on the market right now that we may look back in a few years and say, that was the best time to buy. Who knows? See you next week.